Good evening, everyone, and sorry to keep those of you here in the council chamber as well as those of you watching at home waiting. We just had a caucus item that just took a little longer than expected. We're going to begin with the singing of O Canada, and so if I can invite everyone to stand as you're able, and we will be the choir this evening. Thank you very much. It's been moved by Councillor Marsh that the minutes of the regular meeting held May the 15th and special meetings held May the 15th and 29th as mailed to the mayor and councillors be accepted. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, there being none, and communications referred to file. Unless otherwise directed, I shall refer the communications as listed on the agenda. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We'll now move into presentations, and if I can invite Akshansh AJ Kumar to the podium in the middle. And we'll come, Councillor Fernandez and I will come and join you momentarily. But Akshansh is an 11-year-old Kitchener spelling champ, who did not make the finals of the Scripps National Spelling Bee after he spelled the word quokka incorrectly. However, he was one of only 3 students from Ontario to reach this international competition. To reach the competition in Oxon Hill, Maryland, Kumar first beat his fellow grade 6 classmates, then went to London for the regional qualifier, the Big Spelling Bee. And he was quoted as saying, "As I was walking to the stage, my cousin stopped me and said one thing, be the word. It was with this advice that I went to the stage. My final word came, swineherd, S-W-I-N-E-H-O, how does it end? E-R-D. I waited for the judge's response. It felt like a lifetime. That's correct, she exclaimed. I had done it, he said. That day was one of the best days." But then we came to what is a quokka. And a quokka is a kind of marsupial or tiny wallaby which lives in Australia. And he was close, but not quite with that. But in our books, you are a spelling master, and we'd like to present you with a certificate. So, Councillor Fernandez. I think Mom and Dad want to take that. Okay, to hold this. Do you want to say anything? You can do it right here. Right here. Hold on, I'll lower it a little bit for you. There we go.
I would like to thank my parents and Mr. Miller and Miss Nelson for encouraging me and organizing the spelling bee at the school.
Awesome. Thanks for coming in this evening, and Chance, we're very proud of you, and look forward to you maybe having an opportunity to go back next year and show them your stuff. Take care. Thank you. And we'll now move into item B, which is a certificates of appreciation and long service recognition awards to volunteer groups and committees. And I'll invite Marla Pender to the podium to begin things, and I'll come and join you over there. And as we go along, we'll invite various members of council to join us.
Great. Mayor and Council, the City of Kitchener has a long history of working with volunteers. Whether it's a one-time event volunteer, an advisory committee volunteer who participates monthly, or a committed meal program volunteer, our volunteers make a huge impact in our community. There are many ways we like to recognize the contributions made by our many volunteers and volunteer groups. Tonight, it's my great pleasure to be here on behalf of all of the staff at City of Kitchener, as well as the citizens who benefit from the services they provide, to help Council celebrate long service milestone anniversaries for some of our valued volunteer groups. So I would like to invite the Mayor here to announce the winners and the recipients and present certificates of appreciation to the representatives who are here tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Marla. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we'll start with the presentations to our minor sport groups. Healthy citizens make a healthy community. 40 minor sports organizations are affiliated with the City of Kitchener, operated by volunteers who serve as executive members, coaches, team managers, special event organizers, and fundraisers. From baseball to water polo, there's an activity for every sport enthusiast of all abilities. The first minor sports group we will celebrate tonight is the Asahi Judo Club. Stephanie Gold, Vice President, and Reed Irving, Board Member, are here tonight to accept a certificate of appreciation in celebration of 50 years of service to the community. Next, we celebrate the Kitchener Soccer Club. I'd like to welcome Frank Hubert, President, and Tim Hart, the General Manager, to accept the certificate of appreciation for 50 years of service to our community. Now, please welcome Richard Newell, President of the KW Track and Field Club, to accept this certificate of appreciation for the club's 55 years of community contributions. Our final presentation to a minor sports group tonight is the Waterloo Regional Boxing Academy, which is celebrating 70 years of continued programming and community building in Kitchener. Lauren Cloutier, President, and Rick Cadilla, Vice President, are here to accept the certificate of appreciation. Thank you. Next, we'll be recognizing one of our citizen committees. These committees provide advice and feedback to City Council and standing committees on a variety of issues, including arts and culture, accessibility, and in the case of the committee we are recognizing tonight, issues related to adults 50+. Please welcome Randy Farrell, Chair, and Linda Schneider, First Vice Chair of the Mayor's Advisory Council for Kitchener Seniors, to receive a certificate of appreciation for their 30 years of service to the community. And I would now like to invite Councillor Marsh to join me at the podium. Another way that volunteers impact our community is by volunteering directly in city facilities. Tonight, we celebrate the ongoing contributions made by the Bright Up Center Snack Bar volunteers. Please welcome Donna Lawrence to accept a certificate of appreciation for the Snack Bar's 25 years of service to our community. Finally, we celebrate neighborhood associations. Kitchener residents enjoy a wealth of programs and resources close to home thanks to a working partnership we have with volunteers from the many neighborhood associations that operate across our community. First, we celebrate the Old Berlin Town Neighborhood Association. Thank you to Rosemary Coleman, board member, and Donna Keel, newspaper editor, for being here tonight to accept our appreciation for the association's 45 years of service to their neighborhood. And I can now invite Councillor Ioannidis to the podium. Next, I'd like to invite up the Boardwalk Neighborhood Association, represented by Brian Hasty, Vice President, and Hannah Domagala, Member at Large, who is celebrating 5 years of service to the community this year. Okay, next I'd like to invite up Councillor Paul Singh, and I'd like to welcome the Alpine Community Neighborhood Association, represented by Graham Jeffrey, Secretary. The Alpine Association is celebrating 10 years of service to the community this year. Okay, next I'd like to invite up Councillor Zyganetsky. And we'd like to welcome Frank Miller, Traffic Coordinator, and Ted Maver, founding member and alumni of the Westmount Neighborhood Association, to accept this certificate of appreciation for their 10 years of community contributions. Excellent. Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Councillor Yvonne Fernandez forward. And now we're going to celebrate the Carindale Neighborhood Association. And a thank you to Warren and Judy Stewart, board members, for being here tonight to accept our appreciation for the association's 40 years of service to their neighborhood. And earlier this evening at the reception, they were telling me they've been here since day one of the association. Now I'll invite Councillor Frank Edrington forward. And we'd now like to invite up the Highland Sterling Community Group, represented by Julie Gilbert, Chair, who is celebrating 40 years of service to the community this year. Awesome. And now I'd like to invite Councillor Dave Schneider forward. And please welcome Chris Letizzi, President, and Judy McCabe, Interim Vice President of the Stanley Park Community Association, to accept this certificate of appreciation for their 40 years of community contributions. Okay. And now I'd like to invite Councillor Scott Davey forward. And our final neighborhood association here tonight is the Bridgeport Community Association, celebrating 60 years of continued programming and community building in Kitchener. Linda Hayward, President, is here to accept the Certificate of Appreciation. I'd now like to extend our congratulations to two groups who could not be here tonight to receive their certificates. Congratulations to the Kitchener-Waterloo Predators Volleyball Club, who's celebrating 10 years of service, and the Centerville-Chicopee Outdoor Winter Rink, who is celebrating 15 years of service. Let's give them both a round of applause. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Violet Cook, who was named Kitchener Senior of the Year during the Living Well Expo on May the 27th. For those of you who were here, you would have met a very youthful and spry 99-year-old lady who no longer drives but still lives on her own, has more energy than I think most of us in this room, and it was just a bowl of inspiration. Congratulations, Violet, and thank you for dedicating so much time and energy to our community. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me once again in congratulating all of the dedicated volunteers here tonight. Together, you and the organizations you volunteer with have contributed 555 years of service to the City of Kitchener, and our community is so grateful for all you've done for the quality of life in our community. Thank you very much. And now, for those of you who aren't inclined to spend the rest of the evening with us, you can take a moment or two to leave. But otherwise, if you would like to stay, you're more than welcome to join us for part or all of the evening. Oh.
Sue King.
Oh, no.
So you could just give a shout out in.
Okay. Okay, we'll resume our meeting, and just before we go into delegations, I will note many of us in the council chamber are familiar with Miss Sue King, and Sue for many years brought students here to us to Sing O Canada, and still regularly supplies our office with fresh flowers. and Sue is actually celebrating her 97th birthday today. So just like to, in case she's watching, which she probably is, wish her a happy birthday on behalf of all of council. And with that, we'll move into delegations, and we have 6A. A notice has been given for any member of the public to speak for or against the bylaw to name a private road in a residential development as Netherby Lane, listed as item 11D and 14D. Is anybody here to speak to the issue of Netherby Lane? Going once? Anybody here to speak to the issue of Netherby Lane? Going twice? You sure, Bob? It's your chance. Anybody here to speak to Netherby Lane going a third time? Okay, so let's, I guess, just deal with it at this point in time then. And it's numbers 11D and 14D in the bylaws. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Fernandez, seconded by Councillor Ioannidis. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. We'll now go into Clause 3 of Community and Infrastructure Services, and we have 2 delegations. I'd like to remind delegations that they have 5 minutes to make their presentation, and the first delegation is Jason Jones. Welcome, Jason.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Good.
That's good. My name's Jason Jones, and I live at 446 Louisa Street, and I've lived there for 23 years. And I couldn't attend the meeting they had for the sidewalk. I've talked to a lot of the neighbors that have been in the neighborhood for a lot of years. There's a lot of people that have been in the neighborhood for a long time, and they don't see any sense of the sidewalk being put there. It's a beautiful piece of green belt there. There's beautiful trees there, and it's nice and private. And they just don't see why it's necessary for a sidewalk to be put there. When I bought the house 23 years ago, I didn't sign up to shovel a sidewalk. That's a half a mile long or whatever it is, but it's quite long. It would be a lot of work for an individual. I think it would drop the value of my home. No one's going to want to maintain and take care of a sidewalk that long. It's a beautiful, nice little area down there, and I think the majority of the neighborhood likes it just the way it is. And I really, I don't see why you'd have to uproot trees and disrupt it. It's a beautiful sight to see. So I hope you take into thought that, you know, there's the toboggan hill there, that a sidewalk on a toboggan hill is kind of dangerous. And just the maintenance for it. I mean, I already do the maintenance out there as much as I can. I mean, the city workers are already booked solid with what they have to maintain now. To get them on the hill and to maintain that is, you know, I don't see why you'd have to do that, like when it's fine the way it is. And I just hope that you really put some thought into what you're doing. It's nice down there. I really like it, and I hope it stays the same, and so does the rest of the neighborhood. And I think yeah, there's lots of pros and cons to everything in this world, but I think this, the pros outweigh the cons here. Like, I mean, by putting it in, it's not going to be beneficial to the city. And I think it's going to be a safety hazard putting a sidewalk on a toboggan hill. And I think taking out the trees, like the chestnut trees and stuff, it's a big food source for the animals. And it's beautiful. People come down and take pictures of it. And it's just a beautiful corner, and it's a beautiful neighborhood. And if you could keep it the way it was, I think a lot of people enjoy it. And I don't see necessary for a sidewalk to go up there. And I didn't buy the house to have a sidewalk there. I bought it the way it is. And it's beautiful, and I hope it remains that way. And I think it's in the best interest of everybody. There's a sidewalk right across the road. There's hardly people use that sidewalk. They don't even use the sidewalk across the road that often. So, I mean, it's not like it's a busy area where you need 2 sidewalks. So, I just hope that you put thought into it. I don't want to maintain a sidewalk that long, and I don't think people that see my house, if I ever sell it, would want to maintain that either. It's quite long, and it's already enough work down there as it is. So if you could please just put some thought into it. I brought a letter down from another neighbor, and I think if you read it thoroughly and put some thought into it, I think you'll see that it's not really in favor of having a sidewalk down there. So I hope you don't wreck it down there. I truly do. I really love it down there. I've been there 23 years, and it's a beautiful place. And I think putting a sidewalk up that side of the boulevard there, it's not going to benefit anybody. I mean, it's only across the street people have to walk, and it's a quiet neighborhood. So, and it's a beautiful green belt. To wreck that, I mean. The downtown core in the downtown city is really beautiful. It's come a long way. No one even wanted to be down there when I moved in there. It was kind of like that was the bad part of town, right? Now it's beautiful and everybody likes it, and it's special. And I hope they just leave it the way it is, because it sure is nice to look at. Anyway, that's all I have to really say.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
We have some members of council with questions for you.
Sure.
Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you, Paul, right?
Jason.
Sorry, Jason, I apologize. So I'm looking at a Google map picture here of Vincent Street, and I'm also looking at the map from the report. There's a stretch of a road here that has absolutely no sidewalk on both sides.
Excuse me?
There's a piece of Vincent Street.
Yeah, that's correct.
That has no sidewalk whatsoever.
On the one side,
On
right.
one side.
Yes.
But there is sidewalk on, if we were to continue the sidewalk on the side that already has a sidewalk, because there's a piece that's not connected past.
That's correct. You're right. Yes, and that would be that's understandable. I could see that part. There's no sidewalk on top of the hill.
Okay.
That's right. And that goes to Guelph Street. You're right.
Okay, so the one, so if we were inclined to complete that stretch, that would run, I guess, from Hill Street up to
Guelph Street.
I guess that's it's not marked on this map.
It
but
would be
must
Guelph Street. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that would be you'd see that as a benefit to the community?
I sure do. Yes, I do. I see that part. I work for Kerr Construction. I built most of the city. I run bulldozers for a living. I have to design. I have to look and see beautiful and what looks nice and what doesn't look nice, and that's my job. That's what I do. And I built a lot of the city. And so yes, I what I see is yes, that's practical, because that way somebody could walk all the way up to Guelph Street on a sidewalk. That's correct. And the people that live there, they don't only have so much just the front of their house to shovel. It's not like our corner lot where I have the front of my house to shovel plus that whole way up the side of towards the alley. And just with the alley incident too. We get a lot of, I don't know what word to use, but people go in the alley and aren't doing the proper things that they should be doing. They're dumping garbage, they're doing other things, and by not having a sidewalk there, it kind of deters people, to stay away from it, right? Where you're not getting a lot of mischief down the alleys with things being stolen and broken into and stuff like that. If you put the sidewalk there, you're going to attract more people down into the alley doing more bad things. And also, in the wintertime, when we have a lot of snow, the people take the snow from the alley and they put it on the boulevard right in the corner of my house. It's a great place. Instead of trucking it out, which costs big dollars, they can just pile it there and it melts in the springtime. So, I mean, it benefits the city to have that boulevard where people don't go over on that side, because they can put the snow from the alleyway there.
Okay, okay. Thank you. I appreciate your.
And I do think that, yes, that would be really nice to put the sidewalk all the way up to one side, right to Guelph Street. Totally practical. It's away from the toboggan hill. That's where people walk up to go to the toboggan hill too.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate your input.
Okay, Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Jason, for coming in and sharing.
I'm not used to this. I'm kind of nervous.
Don't be.
You know what? I've been there, and I know how you feel.
Yeah.
And so it's all right. You're doing great. So a couple questions for you. Just, are you, well, first of all, I agree with you. You do have a beautiful area.
Yeah.
Now, are you feeling that if the design were able to keep most of the trees
Right.
along the street, that then the beauty of the area would be yet maintained intact?
It would definitely, sure, obviously, that totally makes 100% sense to me. Sure, the trees have been there. The chestnut trees, like I said, it's a food source for the animals. Honestly, they watch it, and within 1 or 2 days, that chestnut tree's stripped. So then they keep the food for the winter time.
Yeah.
And yes,
Okay.
that would be yes. I think if you did go ahead with it and you didn't affect the trees, sure, that would be nice.
Yes, okay, and then another question is just around, you may or may not be familiar with the accessibility that we are trying to promote with having 2 sidewalks and as many streets as possible throughout Kitchener.
Right.
And this is a chance, I just want to know, what do you think we should be saying to those people with accessibility issues, whether it's people who have low visibility or are in a wheelchair, even people with a stroller trying to walk the baby? What do you think we should tell them if we went ahead with not putting a sidewalk in?
What would you tell them? Well,
Or what would be your
for
answer?
start, I've seen numerous times people falling. Even in my neighbor mentions it in the letter. That hill's dangerous. Even the people that maintain the sidewalk, I've seen people. I've been walking behind people that have fell on that hill and hurt themselves. So I mean, a lot of the times the people, they walk up the side of the road anyway to avoid the sidewalk because it's so steep, and it's for starters, I don't really see a lot of handicapped people down in that area, but the ones that are, it's just a fact of everybody just crosses over the street. You just go, like, I'm not sure what the street is behind me, but it's a matter of just going to the corners, and it's just walk across the street from here to that lady away.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it's very little inconvenience. I think it's very little inconvenience to do that, and that's a good point, and I understand that. But I don't think to rip up a green belt, a beautiful lawn, and drop the values of homes and stuff, that people couldn't just walk simply across the street. There's not a lot of traffic back in there, and
Okay, thank you.
and that's it. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
So those are all the questions we have, Jason.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. If you can just take a seat.
Yeah. Thank you.
And the next delegation we have is Mr. Sean Murray. And while Mr. Murray is coming up, I'll just remind council that there are also, letters on our desks from Mr. Colin Hunter and Ms. Liz Quinn concerning this issue as well. Welcome, Mr. Murray.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I just want to start off and I say I agree with a lot of what Jason was talking about. I'm not a man with as many words, but just another point to bring up is I spent a lot of personal time and labor just trying to clean up my side, so I'm right behind him. And I'm right on St. Vincent and Hillview. So the address is 38 Hillview. And I back right off the other side of the laneway there. So same issue. It's, there's like 120 feet there of property that there'll be a new sidewalk to have to maintain as well. That, I work a lot of hours. It's tough enough as it is sometimes, but other than that, I'd just like to reiterate that the trees are beautiful. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I bought where that was. There's a nice big tree. It helps with privacy. I actually have my driveway comes along St. Vincent, and if there's a sidewalk, it just kind of adds more traffic. And like you said, there's the odd time you get some people walking around there that they kind of, you never know what they're up to, and it's a little sketchy at times. And just where it is there, like I can't see back into that corner towards my driveway. And I've had mine and my girlfriend's vehicles broken into about 3 times, and that's like a smashed back window, and they come in, they root through our stuff. So the less traffic walking right beside my driveway and looking into my backyard, I think would be beneficial for me.
Okay. Councillor Galloway has a question for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to, so you raise a concern. Your driveway actually physically enters in off of St. Vincent, is that right?
Yeah.
And would your car still be able to fit in your driveway if there was a sidewalk, or would it hang over the sidewalk?
It would still fit in.
It would still fit in.
It comes up right along the whole property, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. There don't appear to be any other questions.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll now, if I can ask, Councillor Marsh, you have a question? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a couple questions following up to the delegation. First, I want to know if staff can tell us about we know that in the report it mentions some low stature trees will be affected, but can we hear a little bit more about the trees and the ability to save trees?
Thanks. Go ahead, Mr. Reedman.
Through the mayor, so whenever we do sidewalk infill, our goal is to minimize impacts to trees. So we're only at conceptual design right now, so we figure a few small stature trees might be impacted, but as we get into detailed design, we'd want to minimize any impacts. It's also important to note that our tree replacement program installs 2-to-1 trees, so every tree that's lost, we would replace 2 along that reconstruction corridor.
Okay. Also, can you tell me? Can you tell this committee, or sorry, this council, about any schools that are in the vicinity?
Through the mayor, there are 2 schools nearby. One is St. Teresa Catholic Elementary, and the other one is the Margaret Avenue School. What we hear and what a lot of our policies indicate is that we want to increase walkability to schools. So a lot of parents are hesitant to let their kids walk to school, and primarily it's related to safety. And the more barriers we create for kids, i.e. the more times they have to cross streets, reduces the amount of safety for children walking to school. So part of our policy is structured around that, as well as accessibility for Ontarians with disabilities. When there's not sidewalks present, it's very difficult for people to get around when they have visual impairment, because they use the sidewalk as guidance. So when they're on the street, they can get disoriented when there's no sidewalks to monitor where they're located, and they can end up down people's driveways and different things. So we're trying to create an accessible community through our sidewalk info policy.
2 more questions. Ask them together. First is just one of the delegates talked about the steepness of the grade, and I can understand the concern that people might have difficulty with walking on a steep grade. But can you speak to that? But the other question is just around. The other delegate mentioned about the darkness near his driveway, which will then be beside the sidewalk. Will we be seeing any increase in the number of streetlights that will be along that stretch, or can we look into that so that we can have some disincentives for people to be doing things that they shouldn't be doing near that alleyway?
Through the mayor, so in terms of steepness, the AODA guideline states the maximum running slope of an exterior path must be no more than 1 in 20 or 5%, but where the exterior path is a sidewalk, it can have a slope greater than that, but it cannot be steeper than the slope of the adjacent roadway. So the steepest points on the road are 7.7% to 10%. So it would comply with AODA policy. I would go further and state that when a person's walking along a street and they were to slip and fall, the risk of being hit by a car when they slip and fall on the roadway is more dangerous than slipping and falling on a sidewalk where there's boulevards separating you from potential moving vehicles. In terms of your second question, we're currently undergoing the LED streetlight retrofit, and that program creates better quality light. So currently the metal halide lights create hot spots of light right under the light, which fade as you get away from the light. The LED light creates more uniform light across the whole roadway surface. So just the lighting retrofit on its own is going to improve lighting in the community.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions I have.
Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah, so in looking at the map here that I have from Google Maps, it shows that there is a sidewalk completely, almost continuously down the majority of St. Vincent's. And if we were to continue that sidewalk, we would not have to deal with the tree situation that we would if we did both sides. Is that not still making us very connective?
Through the mayor, there's a park on the other side of the street, so people would have to cross the street to get to that park an additional time. Our policy currently states that sidewalks should go on both sides in a priority to location unless there are unmitigatable concerns. Staff have reviewed all of the potential concerns. There's 4 tests for that. None of them are unmitigatable.
And I understand that there, looking at both maps, that there is a park there and that people will have to cross the street, but people living on the other side of the street are going to have to cross the street regardless of whether there's a sidewalk there or not, right?
Through the mayor, I'll only reiterate the policy that the council recently approved that indicates sidewalks on both sides of every street, and if they're priority 2, unless there's unmitigatable concerns, then we would offer just about sidewalk on one side.
I understand the policy. I'm just saying that there are times when I think we have to look at the whole picture and the impacts as indicated by the residents. And that when I look at the concerns from the report, 9 impacted on landscaping. We've got tree loss. Property value is never always as concerning as the residents see it is. But, okay, I think I've made my point. Thank you.
Councillor Gazzola.
Are we doing other construction work there? Is that what has brought this to the top of the list, or is it just what? What is the reason for it being here?
Through the mayor, this is a full reconstruction project of the roadway. It's full reconstruction of the roadway. Yeah. So whenever we have that, we bring the sidewalk infill a year in advance of the work starting.
Have there been any problems there because of the lack of the sidewalk? Have we ever had any problems?
Through the mayor, I'm not aware of specific problems. I haven't checked to see our risk claims if we've had any issues around that. But I will note that when we look at the surveys from the total area, 55% of people that responded to the survey were in support of sidewalks on both sides, while only 29% were only opposed. When we look at the entire community, so that indicates there's people that have kids walking to school that want to see sidewalks on both sides of the street.
Thank you.
Should I cut Gazzola? Yeah.
If you're going to deal with that now, if you would separate, there are 2 streets on the agenda, if you would call each one of them separately.
Okay. So, Councillor Ioannidis, Chair of the committee, if I can ask you to bring the recommendations forward.
Thank you, Mayor Verbanovic. It's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillors Sarah Marsh that the following streets be approved for sidewalk infill as per sidewalk infill policy attached to Infrastructure Service Department report. Hill Street, St. Vincent Street, and Patricia Avenue, and further, the following streets be deferred till the June 12th Community Infrastructure Service Committee meeting for sidewalk infill as outlined in report INS 17041 to allow Shantz Lane and Bond Street for further review and proposed design options and impacts on mature trees.
Okay, so Councillor Gazzola, you're just asking that we deal with St. Vincent Street separately? Hill and St. Vincent are together, so you want that one dealt with separately?
Yeah, and Patricia dealt with, yeah.
Okay, that's fine, I will do that. Patricia and the balance of the report? Yeah. Okay. So it has been moved and seconded. Any comments? Councillor Yanetsky.
Yes, thank you very much. I have no concern about Patricia Street, but the sidewalks going in there, and I'll support that. Regarding St. Vincent Street and Hillside, the small one, I heard the residents' concerns as outlined here. I've read the letters that have been submitted. I did take the opportunity earlier today to drive the street twice to take a look at it from two different perspectives, going north and then coming south, to examine the boulevards, the sidewalks, how many people are walking or biking, whatever. Didn't see anybody really, and I thought, like, why do we need sidewalks here? It just didn't seem to make sense to me. So. I don't think we should put sidewalks in as shown in the recommendation, but I'd be prepared to support the continuation of the one side along St. Vincent, where the existing sidewalk is for part of the stretch, and then continuing it on to Guelph. So I'm not going to support it as recommended, but I'd be prepared to support the report, the recommendation or an amendment to have just the continuation on the one side.
Okay, so you're moving an amendment? Is there a seconder? Councillor Fernandez, okay. Sorry? Yeah, you have to write it out. Councillor Yunetsky? Councillor Marsh?
Thank you. As the councillor in this area, I am concerned whenever I hear from a resident that has concerns about a proposal, and I think it's very important that we listen carefully to their concerns, and that is why I do think that we need to listen to concerns about trees and direct staff in the design of this project to ensure that we are doing everything that we can to protect the trees. I want to remind residents that we do have programs, one program in place that's just relatively new and perhaps lesser known, called the Snow Angels program, that is about matching up people who want to shovel sidewalks with people who are unable to do so for whatever reason it may be. Unfortunately, at this point, I still am in favor of the sidewalks on both sides because I think that it's a slippery slope, pardon the pun, if we listen to only the viewpoints of those people who are directly affected versus the people who will need to use those roadways and sidewalks to get from point A to point B, such as students going to and from school, as well as anybody who is looking to access the park nearby. Now, I do hear the concerns, and I understand them, and they are valid concerns. However, I think that the benefits do outweigh the costs. Because we have to remember that we're not just looking at sidewalks for today, for tomorrow, for in 5 years, but we're looking to install sidewalks that would then last for 80 years more or more. And so we need to build the city for today and for the children in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Gazzola. And just before we go there, the clerk has informed me that, in fact, the amendment that you're suggesting, Councillor Yunetsky, would negate the intent of the original motion, and therefore it's not really an amendment. And as I think about it, I would tend to agree with her on that. So I will be taking the original motion as it is, and if it doesn't succeed, then I will take a secondary, I'll come to you for a new motion to just deal with the section that you're talking about. Okay? So, Councillor Gazzola.
Thank you. Yeah, I will not support the motion that's before us. I just really cannot understand. I cannot get it into my thick skull why we force sidewalks onto people, and people that are directly affected who don't want them, who've not had them, and life has gone quite well. I know going forward that we have a pedestrian charter, and I'm totally in favor of that, going forward, I don't see any problems with putting the sidewalks in on both sides of the road. That's fine. But here we have a lot of parts of our city that have been there for a long time, and we have street after street of people that are most directly affected that are not in favor. They're happy with the way things are. In a case like this, and I've, over the years, I've done a lot of walking and a lot of cycling. I use the sidewalks to cycle a lot, illegally, but carefully. But when there's a sidewalk across the street, it's good if you're a pedestrian to force yourself to cross over the street. I think that's good for your health to walk across the street. There have been, we had two other cases that are deferred. It just makes no sense to force the people in the neighborhood to put in sidewalks. I can appreciate that. Yes, we have to meet the requirements of IOTA as best we can. We can't always meet all the requirements at the same time, but in areas like this, when the people that are directly affected are not in favor of it, and we have in this case a good compromise, can we not live with the compromise? So
Councillor Marsh.
Councillor Gazzola, I want to understand, with all due respect, how you can say that you are for the AODA and for the pedestrian charter, and at the same time you're saying that you don't. I'm trying to understand where you're coming from.
Councillor Marsh, in all due respect, that's not a point of clarification. You can debate that later on if you like. Councillor Gazzola, do you have anything else to add?
No,
Okay.
Well, I would ask that we take a recorded vote on that.
We will do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you. So I understand that when we are doing reconstruction of a street, that we look for opportunities to make the best use of the work that is being done on that street at that time. We look at the situation that the street has. Does it have sidewalks? Does it have no sidewalks? What kind of work are we going to be doing? And so we want to make efficient use of the time and money that we're spending on those streets. Notwithstanding that's important to taxpayers, I think, and it is very important that we recognize that at some point we passed a pedestrian charter. But we didn't realize is when we passed that pedestrian charter, the implications that we would have time after time after time, residents coming to us saying, listen, we have a sidewalk on one street, it serves our purposes and serves the purposes of the residents who are walking down the street. And in this case, we can continue it on the one side of the street. So again, we're still making best use of our time and our money while we're doing a reconstruction. We also need to recognize that we do have some AOD standards. If there is a sidewalk on one side of the street, I think we are at the beginning of fulfilling some of those standards. It becomes very challenging, I think, for us to sell this sidewalk infill policy, and that's why we created the point system. And the point system is good if we have enough time to give the residents the opportunity to come and express to us why they feel pro or against a sidewalk. In this case, and like the cases that were presented to us last week, we see that there could be some reasons why we might want to reconsider some of that. In this case, I think both of the residents have made some good points. FYI, a sidewalk doesn't necessarily change your property values, but it is going to impact your landscaping. It's going to change, what you see out the front of your door. So my hope is that we as a council can be flexible enough and nimble enough to say, okay, let's continue the sidewalk down one side of Vincent Street. Let's make sure that continuous ability for pedestrians to walk is safe, that they can cross at safe intersections. And in looking at the map that I was looking at, there is ability to cross safely at a number of points that go to other sidewalks. And I think that's a good compromise. It isn't just all or nothing. Let's see if we can compromise. So I'm asking council to turn down the both sides sidewalk recommendation and opt for at least one continuous sidewalk down one side of Vincent Street.
Councillor Marsh.
I just want to add a comment that I think we can't go and do our own little surveys by seeing that we don't see anybody walking up and down a street when we happen to be driving by and then decide that we don't need sidewalks. We've heard from the residents beyond just the those who live directly in front of the sidewalks proposed, and we know that they are in favor of sidewalks, 50% or so. I myself have struggled with kids and toboggans trying to navigate the hill right between cars and the snow, and a sidewalk would have been very handy at the time to get to the park. And I know that as we've seen with many other sidewalks in the past and with bike lanes, that we cannot determine the need based on current uses. We need to look at who is going to potentially be using this area to get from point A to point B on foot in the future once it's built. And I think that councillors around this horseshoe who are asking us to just look at one sidewalk instead of two are forgetting the actual intent behind the pedestrian charter and the AODA standards, the Access for Ontarians with Disabilities Act.
Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
And on that note, from Councillor Marsh, I kind of wanted to follow up on some of that too. When we're talking about the AODA standards, some isn't good enough. It requires us to have, well, it's incumbent on us to have sidewalks on both sides of the street for accessibility purposes, and some isn't good enough. I think there's some people on council, or all of us, frankly, on council, that may need to revisit the pedestrian charter. It's been a while. I'm not saying open it up, but maybe just resend the information to us via email on the pedestrian charter with all the comments that came with it when we made that decision. You know, we haven't heard from GRAC on this issue, Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee, in a while, because we have a policy that they fully were informed, came forward, and stated their opinion. There were many who led the pedestrian charter to get where we are today. It was a huge decision that was made. We have a policy that's in place, and maybe it's time that we revisit that. I think it's really important that we continue to do what we say we're going to do, or because the people who have advocated for the pedestrian charter to be in place, which is many people, can't come here every time we have a sidewalk infill discussion. They believed in us when we decided to take on a policy that required sidewalks on both sides of the street to fulfill that policy. Sure, there's going to be the odd case that there's just too many obstacles to overcome. And sure, we can look at those, but we need to stick by our policy, and we need to continue to build sidewalks, because it's not just for the people, and with all due respect, I appreciate you coming out and your concerns. It's not just about the people who live there now, but it's about the people who are also going to live there in the future. And we talk about age-friendly communities. This is one piece to it.
Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And shortly, I respect the delegate's opinion, but the way I see it, sidewalks are for a much greater good of our communities that benefit and affect far more than just the residents that they front. And I'd like to view that as the councillor for Ward 6, the area that I represent, that I have a good understanding of the needs of my community. And so if the ward councillor, Councillor Marsh, feel strongly that the sidewalk is necessary there, I would very much defer to her opinion and support the motion.
Councillor Davey?
Thank you. I thank the delegates for coming in and bringing forward the opposition to the sidewalk. I understand it. And I really wish that we could do something for you in this instance. There just isn't really, in my opinion, a viable alternative here. I do believe in the pedestrian charter. And beyond that, looking at the numbers here, the area residents, 26 were in favor. We have the data right in front of us. 26 were in favor, 9 were opposed, of people that live in the area, people that would like to be able to use a sidewalk on both sides of the street. I have to respect that, and I also have to respect the fact that part of the sidewalk is going right in front of a park. We cannot not build a sidewalk that's going right in front of a park.
Okay, it seems that everybody has spoken, so I'll make my comments. I will be supporting the recommendation that is before us. I too want to thank the delegations for coming in, and the delegation that took the time to write us a letter. It's been suggested that perhaps the council of the day that considered the pedestrian charter wasn't fully aware of what the impacts were going to be. I would suggest to you that I don't believe that is a fair characterization. I think the council of the day did clearly understand what the impact of that was going to be, and that it was going to require us to make some difficult decisions along the way. But if we truly believed in the direction that we were going in around accessibility for citizens of all ages and all abilities, then it meant moving in that direction. And that's why this council supported the pedestrian charter and has on a number of occasions supported a number of other initiatives around accessibility. This morning I was speaking at an event that we were co-hosting downstairs with the Independent Living Center in the Rotunda, and had an opportunity to speak with Paula Saunders, someone that all of you know. And Paula said to me, "I've been asked to come to council again." And she said, "I don't want to come to council again. I've said what I have to say. We believe that there should be sidewalks on every street, on both sides of every street." And do we need to keep coming and repeating that? I think fundamentally, we need to keep in mind that this boils down to us having courage in our convictions. And I applaud Councillor Marsh as the ward councillor, for having the courage in her convictions around this issue. If we truly believe in creating a walkable, accessible city for all, then we need to stand up for those beliefs. And sometimes, yes, those are difficult decisions, but that's what we were elected to do. We weren't elected to just, think about things specific in our ward, or simply do what seems to be, perhaps popular in a particular evening, but it's to make good long-term decisions for this municipality. And I would hope that council keeps that in mind when we deal with this issue tonight, but also when we deal with it in general. Not looking at sidewalk needs to be the exception under very exceptional circumstances, not what seems to be more and more that some people want to simply, if there's any objection to it, we just won't do it. And I would hate to see us go down that direction, because then we're not walking the talk in terms of the pedestrian charter. A recorded vote has been called. Yeah, so I will deal with Hill Street and St. Vincent Street first. No? Why would you chair? No, I still chair. You just move it. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. The balance of the recommendation, did you want to record a vote for that as well, Councillor Gazzola? No? Okay, the balance of the recommendation, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So thank you for coming in, gentlemen. Council has considered your comments, but we did decide to proceed with the sidewalk. Okay, we'll now move to Committee of the Whole number 2, and we have Mr. Bob McCall. Welcome, Mr. McCall.
It's good to be here. It's been a while. I'm Bob McCall. I'm the chair of Kitchener Housing, and with me tonight is Mr. Michael Mooney, who is known to some of you. We're going to keep this short and brief. Michael has applied for a vacant position on our board. I've had a conversation with him. Our board has had a conversation with him. I can say that he has an impeccable resume and outstanding references. And with that, hopefully with the ratification of council, Mr. Michael Mooney will be on our board for the next meeting. If Michael, is there anything, if you have some questions to ask either me about Kitchener Housing or Michael about his application, we're at your service, folks.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi. Welcome. Oh,
thank you very much.
Do you want to say anything, Michael? Or
no, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to appear, and I also like to thank you for the opportunity to offer my services as a member of the board. I look forward to trying to participate meaningfully and contribute meaningfully and achieve the aims of the Kitchener Housing Incorporation. So I welcome any questions you might have about myself or my interest or my resume.
Great. Thanks. Councillor Fernandez.
No questions, but thank you very much for coming in and offering us the opportunity to drill you. I'll move the nomination at the appropriate time.
Okay, I'll come to you. Councillor Ioannidis.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment since I sit along with Councillor Etherington on Kitchener Housing Inc. And we've met with Mr. Mooney, and he would be a tremendous asset to our board. And we do have some great things coming, and we look forward to his support. And I hope everyone recommends him.
Thank you. Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Yeah, my question would...
Oops, sorry, click in again. Go ahead.
For Bob. If I read correctly on our paper, you have 2 vacancies?
We do at the moment. Our corporate charter says that we can have between 9 and 11 people, including the 3 ex officio members of this council. We will be subject to the council's approval tonight. We still will be 1 short of our maximum of 11, but we can function quite well at the limit of where we are today.
Right. Well, there was there any other applicants that you looked at?
Yes, there were. Hope the newspaper isn't here.
Yes.
Yes, and you're on
Rogers.
Rogers.
Public meeting. I'll choose my words carefully. Kitchener Housing, which started 31 years ago, has really changed. It is now a $10 million a year corporation. And the board is very, very much involved on a monthly basis and sometimes on a weekly basis. And it was decided unanimously by our board that we are looking for very specific people that can bring a skill set that can help us move forward with the projects we're working on. Michael has a great deal of a wide variety of projects that he's worked on in his life and is at a high executive level currently. But we also need people who understand engineering. We have a new build project going on at 430 Connaught, which will be completed by the fall. And if I can go off on a tangent for a moment, you're all invited to attend our grand opening. We have another plan that I won't get into too much at the moment, which is going to be a significant business adventure. And this is why we need really good people, business people, compassionate people, people with a social background, people with an understanding of law and construction, as opposed to...
No, that's fine.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
It does. And I do not oppose the nomination that you're putting forward. I wanted to be clear. I just wanted to understand there's a second vacancy, and if there is a certain skill set that you require on the board right now, if you can let us know, and maybe we can help and assist you in recruiting some members. And so I'd be more than happy to try if I know anybody in that skill set. So so that's kind of where I was going with the question.
That would be great if you could come forward with some suggestions. Sure. We will be doing a recruitment again at the end of this calendar year in November, and we will forward to the clerk's office some of the parameters of who we're looking for to fill that vacancy.
Right, because I've been on boards where they outline, what skill sets they currently have on the board and then kind of what gaps they need to fill. And if we can have that understanding, we may be able to assist you.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those are all the questions we have. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. And our meetings are Wednesday afternoon, third Wednesday. And if you've got nothing else to do, we are an open meeting. Come on by.
Sounds good. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez, you've moved the motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Davey, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Congratulations, Mr. Mooney. We'll now move on to the tenders. And to begin with, Council, recall we received a email that number 9, the Charles and Benton Parking Garage repairs, has been withdrawn, and staff will be bringing that back at a later date. So first of all, does someone want to move the tenders? Councillor Ioannidis. We'll go through them. Number 1, any questions? Councillor Fernandez.
Actually, that was about moving the previous, but yeah, I do have a question. If you just give me a second. My first concern is just generally, again, we're spending $1.4 million on consultant in tenders, and I have to express my concern about that. This tender is $26,000 over. I have sent emails to Michelle Palmer. I've had a response, but I'm just concerned about how, when it's a consultant, that we're having an overage on consulting. I understand overages when it comes to actual work, where materials could have an additional cost, or a project can run over. But when it comes to consulting, I think we have to take a re-look at the tender. So if we don't approve this tender, what are the implications? Do we go back?
Ms. Palmer.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, if you choose to not award a procurement process based on lack of budget availability, we would have to go back and potentially rescope the project, retender for the consultant selection, which would delay the start of the consultant work, which would then delay the project. As there are sufficient funds within the AIRP to fund this deficit, as noted in the report, and as this is only the first phase of the project, that's why we've continued to bring it forward.
Okay, but it's not just this one that's over. From this same company, they have 2 that are over budget, right?
Ms. Palmer.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, as I responded to earlier, although price is only one component that these consultant selections were evaluated on both of the contracts being awarded to IBI, they were the low cost.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Singh on this one?
No, on item number 4.
Okay, then I'll come back to you. Councillor Gazzola on this one? Okay, Councillor Yanetsky? Okay, so we'll now go on to number 2 then, Councillor Gazzola?
No, I want to carry on somewhat the same line of thinking. In this particular case, the second item, we have a budget of $126,000, and we've got a tender coming up for $220,000. There's such a vast difference we're short 80% or I'm not sure what the percentage is, but when do we ever go back to the drawing board? We can't keep carrying on like that. A $220,000 tender and $126,000 in our wallet. It just doesn't match.
So the question is, when do we go and reconsider these projects?
This is a particularly good example.
Who from staff wants to tackle that? Ms. Palmer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll begin, and then Mr. Reedman may want to add to this. I would say that we do not reconsider unless we feel that we cannot accommodate the deficit and we fear that the project schedule would be delayed because of it, then we would not relook at it. Mr. Reedman?
Well, I question that. You're saying you can live with the deficit. Well, boy, it just comes as a surprise to me. Here we're talking on this particular aspect, a $95,000 deficit. Where is all this money coming from? When I see other things that we turn down when we need a few $1,000s.
Mr. Reedman?
Through the mayor, so sort of reiterating what Ms. Palmer had said, this is first phase work, so there is still money in the budget overall. Staff do our best job to estimate based on the complexity of the project. This one does carry some risk around it. There's currently liability with this pumping station, that there is no storage capacity. So there is a full-scale EA that needs to be done as part of this. So there is multiple bids. This does come in as the low bid. Staff recommend moving forward with it based on the complexities and the total budget.
Budgets really don't mean a thing then here. That's the bottom line.
I don't think that was the question.
Well,
I don't think that was the response, Councillor Gazzola.
Well, I mean, I just don't understand how we can keep doing this.
Councillor Yanetsky, on this one?
Yes, really the same line of thinking. A number of the questions have been already asked by Councillor Gazzola, and yet, it's way over budget, as pointed out. But I see that the whole total budget of all the phases is $1,004,600. So I'm gathering staff saying, well, we'll take the money out of the future next phase and apply it to here. Is that the way it's going to be working?
Through the mayor, yes, we have a total budget for the project. So this phase did go slightly over budget. Sometimes projects come in under budget. As we progress with the project, we'll keep an eye on it, and council has other approving mechanisms when it comes to the capital construction. But this is an EA combined with detailed design, and it can limit the amount of growth in the community. So not moving forward with this EA continues to expose us to risk for a spill into the creek, and could restrict growth in the community because we need additional capacity.
So how could we underestimate it by so much? I know it's ballparking it to a degree. If they came in 130,000, so okay, so it's a few thousand over. You're in the same range, but this is like way out of line. And so I'm just wondering, why is it just an error in terms of underestimating it?
Through the mayor, so each project is different. So this one is an environmental assessment combined with detailed design. So it's not just a typical detailed design contract. So there are two distinct phases to the work here. There's variability in price depending on workload in the community or beyond the community. So there's a number of factors that lead to variability. We do our best job to estimate the cost. Some years we come in very favorable, some years we don't. But typically our process has worked or averaged out over time that we typically maintain overall budget, but there is variability from year to year.
Okay.
Councillor Schneider on this one?
As I look through all the tenders, there's also surpluses that we have on some of our projects, and they total $117,685. So I would, hazard a guess that sometimes the estimating of the budgeting for this can be quite difficult. Sometimes we come out ahead, and sometimes we come out behind, but it's work that needs to be done. So, maybe explain where these surpluses of 117,685, how they help out, spread out some of the projects that might have a deficit.
Through the mayor, so we do have different funding sources. So this one is funded through development charges. So this is attributed to growth-related work. So this isn't a direct payout from the city. It comes from our DC pool. So overall, there are surpluses and there are deficits, but we can't just combine them all together. But if we look at the averaging, we do tend to come in on average around budget. We can't be perfect all the time because we're at conceptual design right now.
Councillor Gazzola is still on this issue? Okay, we'll come back to you then. So we'll move on then. Number 3, Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Yeah, I wanted to just understand, Huron Road got deferred because of the project costs. Were too high to complete that one from Tressler to Ahmad. Does that mean it will be done next year, or will it just be put back into the pool and see what's the highest priority next year?
Mr. Reedman?
Through the mayor, I don't have specific details on that. I can follow up with you after this meeting.
And it is because my concern with regards to this one specifically is with regards to timing, because if it's next year or any time in the future, is Fisher-Hallman Road and Bleems Road is going to get a roundabout next year, and there's going to be a lot of construction on Fisher-Hallman Road. We cannot be doing any work on Huron Road at that time, so it's a timing perspective. So I just want that to be looked at and addressed.
We'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
Okay, somebody said they had one for number 4. Okay, Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Initially, when I looked at this item, I didn't assess that I had a conflict, but in reviewing the distance to a property I own, I think I am going to go on the side of caution. I have no direct financial benefit from this road reconstruct, but I think it speaks to the lack in capacity for assistance for members of council who have to assess if there is a valid conflict or not, but I'll go on the side of caution. I will declare it nonetheless.
Okay. Anybody on number 5? Councillor Fernandez?
So the Adwood Creek Restoration Detailed Design, I know that this has come to the Environmental Committee a number of times related to the stormwater utility, the stormwater implementation plan and all the study that was done by Aquifer Beach. I'm a little bit puzzled as to why we need more consultant services when Aquifer Beach did. I mean, we have a massive report, and they've gone through an awful lot of detail in those studies. This is over $500,000 in consulting services. Can we not take what was already done by Aquifer Beach in relation to this restoration project and reduce some of the parameters that is happening here? I just feel that this is, we paid thousands and thousands of dollars for that Aquifer Beach study that they did, and they spent 2 years doing it.
So through the mayor, so there's, within the stormwater utility, there's really 4 phases of work. The first one is the master plan that identifies all the projects citywide. Right. The second one is environmental assessments, which do the environmental assessment of the different alternatives and recommend an alternative. At that phase, the most detail that they typically get to is about 30% detailed design, just to make sure the concept works and that the recommendation can move forward. Then we go to the detailed design phase, which is outlined in this tender report. So this is where we do the detailed work on the reconstruction. So the specs for the contractor to build the project get sorted out through this. So that takes it from about a 30% conceptual design right to a full detailed design. Without having that detailed design, we can't go in and do the work in the creek. We can't get approvals from the approval agencies. They need to see how the fish habitat will work, all those components, how it will handle different stormwater flows. So the EA looks at that conceptually, but the detailed design is really what outlines how the work gets installed. Okay, and I appreciate you laying that out for me, Mr. Ridman, but I guess I just recollect what looked like quite a lot of detail around this restoration project when it came to the Environmental Committee.
My understanding was that we were already in detailed design, but maybe that was the way it was presented, that assumptions were made by myself, and I mean, I don't know, I don't have any environmental committee members here to speak for that. This phase of the work is $590,000, and that comes out of the $2.7 million, which is all the money that was earmarked in that very large graph of the stormwater implementation plan, right?
Through the mayor, that's correct, and this was budgeted as part of that work to be able to do that construction.
And this money is coming only out of the stormwater utility?
Through the mayor, that's correct. This is identified from the stormwater utility account.
Okay. I guess my hope was that through all of that work that Aquifer Beach did, that we would have seen some reduction in the terms of reference for some of these projects, but I guess that was absolutely my misunderstanding. Is that basically what they did was very, very high level, and they didn't get in as deep as we should have.
Through the mayor, it's not cost effective to do that level of detailed design at the environmental assessment stage. We would spend way too much time designing different alternatives. So the EA keeps it at a more conceptual level just to make sure it functionally works, and then it moves into detailed design in the next phase.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I just want to ask that a couple of these be pulled out for individual votes,
you can let me know
please.
at the end?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Just before I go on to number 6, sir, are you here for any particular item?
Yeah, I'm here for the mean variance for the fence. I think it's 246.
Blair Creek Drive? And you're just here to answer any questions, or?
I was just told to come.
Okay, you're the applicant? Okay, so you know what, so that you don't have to wait here for a while yet, will somebody want to move it? Councillor Singh, seconder Councillor Ioannidis. Any discussion? We're dealing with number 5, the fence variance for 246 Blair Creek Drive. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Oh, you have a question. Councillor Fernandez?
I'm a ward councillor, so if you wouldn't mind just coming down really quick.
Come to the podium, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you for bumping that up.
No problem.
Thank you for your patience. I was trying to see if there was a map or something that I could take a look at, because it sounds like you're on a side corner lot.
So a corner lot, yeah, between
Okay.
Peter Voss and Blair Creek.
Okay, and you're asking for a fairly substantial change in the setback.
What do you mean by setback
So,
from the
so
sidewalk?
it says the height. Sorry, the height of the fence is 1.82 meters, located 0.61 meters from the side lot, rather than the 1.5. So originally, it was 1.5 meters from the sidewalk, and you're asking for a 0.61 meter.
Yeah, I believe the requirement is 1.5, and I'm requesting a 0.61 meter from the
Okay,
sidewalk.
can you help me understand why?
It's simple. We're basically, it's a pool installation, and we're don't have much yard to work with, so we got to level out the backyard, and we're looking to put a little bit of patio, as well as we'd like to try and retain as much of the side yard for the kids just to play around.
Okay.
Right, now we've looked at the corner visibility triangle and all that. There is no hazard for traffic, there is no, obscurities or anything like that.
Okay, and in terms of sidewalk snow removal, do you have enough boulevard then when you're removing the snow along that sidewalk now it's going to be less than a meter from the sidewalk, your fence?
The boulevard is quite big. There'd be more than enough to keep the snow on the boulevard for sure.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for answering the questions.
Thank you. So as has been noted, the motion has been moved and seconded, and as it's coming to us from the Committee of Adjustment, it's recommending approval with the noted condition. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good night.
Have a good evening. So we'll now go back to the tenders in item number 6, and Councillor Singh, you had a question on that one?
Yeah, I don't know if it's specifically to the tender, but it's on the chemical injection treatment, the project as a whole. Are we seeing the successes that we would hope? I know we're continuing it on. Is there a need to reassess, or has it already been reassessed?
Ms. Fletcher.
So through the chair, we are seeing success. It is an industry recommendation that we continue with the tree injection program. Currently, we're protecting about 1,000 trees. That number will dwindle over time, just due to tree mortality, like natural mortality. So we see over time the program will fade away, but right now it is industry recommended that we continue with the injection program.
Okay, I ask only because I had read a conflicting article, but again, staff have looked at it and they think this is still a continuation of is necessary, then great.
Councillor Arlington on this one? Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. When do we stop these injections? Like, how many years do we do them for? I've got a selfish interest here. I'm doing the same, and I'm paying more than you're paying. But can you tell me when you stop?
Through the mayor, we have 1,000 trees in our inventory right now, emerald ash trees to protect, and as those dwindle over time, we will stop the program, but it is our intention to try and protect those 1,000 trees.
So you stop when they die?
That is correct.
Yeah, thanks.
Not on this one still? Go ahead, Councillor Singh.
Came to mind. Another municipal act kind of deters municipalities competing with businesses, but is there an avenue where we can, take on additional, customers or trees that are on private land if they want to inject as a business case?
Through the mayor, I think you will see with our urban forest strategic session that will come at the end of August before council, we're struggling to keep up with the work that we have currently.
That's fair enough. Okay.
Okay, those are all the questions. Number 7, Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I just want to make sure there were three tenders. One is for 300,000, one is for 500,000, and one is for 700,000. There seems to be quite a difference between those. Are we getting really what we expect to get? Because most of the tenders that we've looked at tonight are within a few $1,000s. So is there a problem with the tender, or are we sure we're getting what we require to get? Because there's such a big difference.
Councillor Gazzola, you're asking about number 8, not number 7? You're asking about the roof or the garage repairs?
I'm sorry, it's it is number 8.
Okay.
The numbers are so small. But it is number 8. Yeah, sorry.
Who wants to take that? Mr. Reedman?
Through the mayor, so the bids were reviewed by our technical consultant that outlined the scope of work, as well as staff in purchasing and parking enterprise, and felt that the low bid met all of the requirements for the job.
Okay. All right.
Councillor Davey on that one?
Number 8, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes, on number 8, the City Hall parking garage. Just one question. Are these repairs in any way related to the repairs that we were talking about during the Carl Zare Square rehabilitation?
One part is, so the urea foam injection at the back, because council deferred the Duke Street side of reconstruction, so there are some cracks at the back of the garage. So urea foam is being installed in that to minimize any salt and water penetration until we get to the back half of the garage. Everything else is internal to the garage that needs to be done.
Okay, so we'll at least see some of that come down then when that returns. Thank you.
Any questions on number 10? Councillor Gazzola? On number 10? Okay.
No, here's another project that's coming in at $185,000. I see the budget for $125,000 now. We've also allocated this community center general provision. How much is there money left in that general provision? Is that what it's for? And Are we going to use up all that money on this one project?
Mr. May?
Through you, Mr. Chair, my recollection is that there is some money remaining, not much. The reality is that this has been identified as an urgent priority, and so we have prioritized funding to this center.
Is that it, Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, no, sometimes, council should be involved in dealing with these priorities, and if that's the case, fine.
Councillor Marsh on this one? Go ahead.
I'm just wondering about the installation of a smooth, flat surface on the community center wall, and it just seems to beg, the question: will there be an opportunity down the road to see a mural painted on that wall? And if not, what about anti-graffiti implementation to try to dissuade people from painting their own murals?
Mr. May?
So through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Reedman and I are fighting over who's going to answer this one. Absolutely, that is our hope. I actually was just out at a similar mural being painted in Williamsburg this morning. We will have to look at warranty periods and those types of things, but it is our goal, not just on this center, but through Love My Hood, to do murals on all of our community centers.
Yeah. And just to clarify, when I say make their own murals, of course we want the communities to make their own murals, but not unwanted wording. Yes, thank you.
On this one, Councillor Galloway-Select. Okay, go ahead.
Just with regards to the product we used, obviously there were some lessons learned with regard to that product in the uses of our community centers. I'm just wondering, because that building's only 11 years old, if there's anything under the warranty that would help offset some of the costs, or was that looked at all?
Ms. Fletcher. Whoops, go ahead.
Through the mayor, I'll jump in on this one. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Lessons learned is we would not put an extruded panel from ground to roof on a future building. It just does not withstand the vandalism or just the wear and tear. So a warranty on a product like that would be about 3 years, so there would be no way to go back 11 years later.
So we'll just ensure we never use that product again?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay, on this one, Councillor Fernandez?
Somehow I remember us doing some work on the exterior surface of this community center before. That wasn't related to this, was it? What was it related to?
Ms. Fletcher?
Through the mayor, that was repairs on the panels, just to try and keep
oh, I see. So it was work. It was work on this, but we repaired it, but it didn't withstand the. How much did we spend at that time? Do we have any idea?
It was maintenance dollars, so it wasn't a significant amount of money, but there is concern with water infiltration if we don't replace the panels.
Yeah. No, I get it. Okay.
Councillor Gazzola still on this? Okay, I'll come back to you. Councillor Singh on this? Or? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I'm just glad to see that this is finally before us. I don't know if members of council will recall, we had tried to apply for a Canada 150 grant as part of this. We unfortunately weren't successful, but other wards received some benefit. Again, this is something that's reflected poorly in the current state that the walls are on the outside. Unfortunately, the parking lot is really well used, and it takes, I wouldn't say it's necessarily active vandalism, but it's activity that takes place in the parking lot with kids playing soccer and the soccer ball being repeatedly hit against the wall. So that's where my question lies, Mr. Mayor, to staff. I did have a quick chat with Ms. Stewart, who was, I think, looking at this project as well. She assured me that the materials used can take that some greater abuse. Just wanted to get certainty on that. and ensure, are we looking at, I guess, other measures that will deter this type of activity or that continuation of abuse on the wall so that we're not at it again and start seeing deterioration of the materials?
Mr. Reedman?
Through the mayor, so the previous material was adhered to the walls with adhesive. This one is actually bolted into the structure with the rail system and also added with secondary adhesive. It's a high-strength reinforced concrete product, which is much more durable than the existing product and is designed to withstand those types of activities.
So through the community center staff, I was given assurance that they are going to be looking at, encouraging that there's no, playing a soccer on the actual parking lot. But again, if that continues, you've said it's a different material, more stronger material, but it can take that type of level of abuse?
Through the mayor, it's totally affixed differently, which is what the issue is with the other product, so yes.
Okay, all right. Again, quick note, Mr. Mayor, I just want to repeat again, because of the active use in that community center, I think our effort needs to be continuation looking at providing alternative spaces for kids to play so that they're not having to, commandeer around traffic in a parking lot to play soccer there.
Okay, thank you. Number 11, any questions? Number 12, Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I'm surprised here to see that we're able to fund $250,000 out of the building stabilization reserve. I've been trying for years to get some money out of there, and apparently it's to improve our Amanda software, going from version 6 to version 7, and building are already on 7. So why are we able to fund all of that out of that reserve? I don't have a problem with that, but I would like to see, I've often liked to have seen that used for other things.
Mr. May?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, building is not on version 7. I'm not sure if you saw that in the report, Councillor Gazzola, but they need to approve this tender in order to get this work done before they can move to Amanda 7. They are a heavy user of the product. Mr. Seelings looked at it closely and has determined that they need to do this for their own business model, and of course the benefit is a whole bunch of other tax-based services will be able to use this system.
Well, the report says that building division is currently the only division now using the CSDC public portal software.
So those are two different things.
So they're already using it, now you're buying it for
there's two different things. There's the Amanda software, which building is using version 6. They are not using the public portal portion. And so this sole source is to purchase the public portal function. Once they've purchased that, then they can proceed to upgrade the whole package to Amanda 7.
Okay. I'm not totally clear, but that's neither here nor there. Now, this is quite an improvement in software. Do we ever see any resource change because of this?
So in fact,
fewer staff people?
So I asked that question about 6 hours ago, and in fact, we actually have an increased level of resources required here. It is a great customer service improvement, but oftentimes we have people not filling in the system properly, and so our staff have to call them back to get information accurately. So we'll manage that increased workload within the system, but I don't anticipate major efficiencies.
Any questions on number 13? Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, this again is a large expenditure here, $500,000, more than that. Are we buying a consulting service or are we buying a product? And like if we're buying a product, why aren't we tendering it? I don't understand that.
Ms. Palmer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're buying a software which is going to integrate our current SAP financial system with mobile devices. So it's actually a software. We utilized a request for proposal process because that allowed us to select the best solution versus specifying, thinking we're the expert and specifying the product exactly and taking the low bid.
But if we go out and ask for a tender, we have various bids, we see the amount. Why wouldn't we do that here?
Ms. Palmer?
3, Mr. Mayor, so our practice on requests for proposals, because price is one component that the proposals are evaluated on, not the only component, so we don't list.
See, I'm surprised, because this is to fit into our SAP system, right?
Ms. Palmer, if you can just leave your mic on, please.
Sorry. 3, Mr. Mayor, so it works with our SAP system.
Because SAP were one of the bidders. I'm surprised then that they wouldn't have won the award. Okay.
Councillor Davey?
Thank you. Yes. Yes, came as a little bit of a surprise, but I do like what I'm reading. The question I have is, because we haven't really seen this before, can staff detail some of the savings that they expect to see through this new software system?
Ms. Fletcher?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what I would focus on is a much better customer experience with this software. So this is sort of phase 2 for Kitchener Utilities in terms of gas and water customer accounts. So what this does is allow us to replace what is virtually a manual system and a manual dispatching system right now with much more automated processes. So when we talk about efficiencies, we're really talking about a much better customer experience.
Okay, that's okay. That's from reading the report here. Just, I guess I was expecting some savings when I see things like, again, the massive reduction of paper usage, replacing the house dispatching system, the in-house dispatching system, being able to dispatch people in real time. My assumption was this is going to increase productivity per worker, and if we don't even see a savings in the very least, it could stave off the near-term hiring of more staff to do this work.
Ms. Fletcher?
So what I can say is similar to what Mr. May has just said about the Amanda program, is there will be work required to get the system in and perfected, and we will manage within the resources that we currently have.
Okay, but once you're over the hump and everyone's learned the system, will this increase productivity per worker is my question.
It will increase productivity, and as I said, it will increase the customer experience. Right now, we have customers who wait quite a time to get their request processed, and that will be a much quicker, much more efficient process for the customer.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez?
Yeah, we've been dealing with this SAP implementation, and I know that Capgemini was one of the assistant who assisted with us, as well as SAP. That's why I'm puzzled, because I'm understanding that it's not just the cost of the tender, but that there are other criteria that we are going to a firm in BC. I mean, we've got 2 on this list who we've already been working with, who we've already been dealing with, who know our systems, who know everything that we have here. I'm not understanding at all. And I know that I did ask the question of Ms. Palmer, but it's still not making sense to me.
Ms. Palmer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, although sometimes we like it and sometimes we don't, with the public procurement process, we have to have an open, fair, and transparent process and open up the playing field to allow vendors, even though we may want to continue working with those that we already previously had good, positive relationships with. In this case, we opened it up to get the best possible solution for this interface, and the highest scoring proposal was a vendor from BC. We don't have a local preference in our criteria because that would be against trade agreements and against the Discriminatory Business Act. So we don't have any rationale for why we would not select a vendor from out of province. We are choosing the highest scoring proponent.
Okay, so their score came in better than the ones that we've been working with, that we know what their expertise is and they know our system. Is that a correct understanding?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Okay. Just Ms. Fletcher, you said something about a better customer experience. So are customers complaining? Are they saying that I'm not getting served properly by our utility staff? I mean, I have to tell you, I had a wonderful experience with our utility staff not that long ago when our carbon monoxide alarm went off. And I mean, I know that's a bit of an emergency, but I mean, how long are they waiting for service?
Ms. Fletcher?
Through the mayor, I'm thrilled to hear that you had a great experience, and I think a vast majority of customers do. What I will stress again is our processes are very much paper-based and quite manual. They do not match industry standard for this kind of work. So it is incumbent upon us, from a legislated standpoint, to move our processes to a much more automated function.
Okay. I'm also appreciating the answers to the questions that Councillor Davey gave, because I do hope that once we're over the hump, we will see some efficiencies.
Are there any other questions on the tenders? If not, they have been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Okay, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Fernandez.
Yes. I wanted to put...
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I wanted to pull out number 1 and number 2 to be voted on separately, please.
Okay, and I do need a seconder as well. I didn't get one before, Councillor Ioannidis. Thank you. So we'll deal with 1 and 2 first. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Balance of the recommendations. All those in favor? Sorry, number... okay, sorry. Number 4 then. All those in favor? Opposed? With the noted conflict. And the balance of the report. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Just before we move on from the tenders, one of the things that perhaps staff can take a look at, I just sort of compare tenders here to tenders at the region and so on. And I don't know if it's fair to say that we don't spend nearly as much time on tenders at the region as we do here. Now, I don't know if that's because the thresholds are different or whatever, but I'm wondering if staff can take a look at that and see if there are some mechanisms where maybe we can fine-tune that process a little bit. Ms. Palmer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we would be happy to. We've actually already begun to undertake some of that review as part of the comprehensive purchasing bylaw review that we're undertaking this year, and it includes looking at how municipalities across the province handle not only purchasing thresholds but also approval thresholds.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have now dealt with the tenders. We'll move on to the reports of the committees. And Councillor Ioannidis, if you can bring forth the rest of CIS.
Thank you, Mayor Verbanovich. It's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Sarah Marsh that the report of the Community Infrastructure Service Committee be adopted from items 1 to 2. We've dealt with item 3, 4, and 5. So items 1, 2, 4, and 5.
Okay, thank you. It's moved and seconded. Councillor Gazzola?
Yes, I want to deal with number 4 separately, and I want you to have a recorded vote on it, please.
Okay, so we'll deal with it separately in a recorded vote. I'll deal with number 4 first then.
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I did not support this when it came to committee last week. One of the reasons was that we seem to have no real idea of what this program is going to cost. I'm sure that it's a good program, but and from talking with staff and from what I can ascertain, it's going to cost us more than $100,000 a year for this program. But no one really seems to have any idea at this time. The other problem I have is that it seems to me it really is intended, or one of the big things that we've done, or a couple of issues that we've done, is where we've painted intersections. I'm not, at this stage of the game, and hopefully you can prove me wrong in the future, but I'm not convinced that the impact of that has been that great that it warrants this. So for that reason, at this stage of the game, I'm not prepared to support it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? No? Councillor Marsh.
It's important to look at the facts, to look at the numbers, and we know that non-traditional traffic calming initiatives work. And we don't know that just because people get to know their neighbors better, because people have fun, and people have a beautiful new intersection when they paint a new intersection. We know that because we measure the speeds of traffic before and after, and we know that the statistics tell us that they are reduced. And that is why I am a very strong proponent of the resident-led traffic calming recommendation here today, and I would urge all of council to support it.
Okay, so it has been moved and seconded, and a recorded vote has been called on this one. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And Councillor Davey, oh, sorry, not yet. The balance of the report, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. It's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dave Schneider that the 5 items of Finance and Corporate Services Committee be adopted.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, again, I would like to deal with item number 4 separately. And again, I'd ask for a recorded vote.
Okay, did you have comments as well?
Yeah, I have a comment, yeah.
Go ahead.
It's to do with the policy we have for investing funds that we have on hand that we don't need immediately. Staff have come up with a revised policy. The policy has been in place for many years, but they have tweaked the policy, and I think there were 4 or 5 items that they have changed, and when we talked about it last week, I totally supported all the tweaking they did. The one exception that I've disagreed with is the exclusion of our banker from the policy, whereby, to me, it means that we could put all our funds that we have for investment with our banker, and therefore our policy really has no bearing on it. And for that reason, I won't support the policy, although I agree with most of the things. It was that one issue that I disagree with. And actually, I think we dealt with that issue separately. If you deal with that issue separately, I can support all the other issues.
Okay, so your preference is to deal specifically with which section?
Our banker from the provisions of our policy. What is it, item 2? Yes. Okay, I have no problem with the other. I think there were 4 items.
Okay, so I'll deal with that separately then. Councillor Singh on this agenda?
For item number 3, if we can record a vote.
Okay, so let's start with number 3 then.
This is number 3 of
No, we're dealing with number 3 under Finance and Corporate Services.
Okay. You're not dealing with, okay, I thought you're dealing with 4.
Yep, I'll come to that. That's carried unanimously. Number 4, I'll deal with the section about banker update number 2 first, and you want a recorded vote on that one, Councillor Gazzola? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And I'll now deal with 1, 2, the balance of 4 and 5. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Councillor Singh, Planning and Strategic Initiatives.
Yes, the 2 items in the planning and strategic initiatives have been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Galloway Seelock for support, asking for support.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Galloway Seelock, unfinished business?
Yeah, or new business.
Okay, go ahead then.
No, I just wanted to bring up an item that's come to my attention from a resident, and I think it might be a really great opportunity for us to look at. It's with regards to the snow storage facility. And so I'm asking staff if they can look into other uses for the snow storage facility during the warmer months when there is no snow there. Some of the options that were presented would be inline skating, a walking track, road hockey. There could be various uses there. So I think it's an interesting opportunity that could generate some revenue. I'm not saying a lot of revenue, but I think it's something that we have an opportunity to at least look into it. So that's just something I want to bring forward and see if staff can have a look at something like that.
Okay. Do we need, Mr. May, do you need further direction on that, or is that Ms. Fletcher? Oh, Ms. Fletcher, go ahead.
Through the mayor, we can collectively, between the 2 departments, take a look at that and bring a report back to council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez.
Actually, on that topic, I had already mentioned this probably about a month ago to Mr. Hildebrandt when we had a conversation about the snow storage area. So I don't know if it just didn't go any further, but I had mentioned to him that we should be looking at opportunities for what we can do on that site if we can. So not preempting what Councillor Galloway Seelock has said, I'm just wondering if maybe that conversation just didn't get any further.
Okay, thank you for adding that. Any Q&A? Sure, yeah, any Q&A? Councillor Etherington.
One quick question through you, Mr. Mayor. Today, the city has received a growing number, I suspect it'll be a growing number of legitimate, in my opinion, noise complaints following events at Bingaman and Victoria Park during the weekend. And I wanted to ask staff if there is any additional action that by law someone can take to reduce the noise decibel rates, particularly the bass sounds at summer events and festivals. It seems to be the bass that troubles most people I hear from.
Mr. May.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'll answer this question because actually I think you're asking about all events. In terms of the event we had over the weekend, staff are pulling all of the complaints that we received together, looking at issues, talking to our partners like EMS and Waterloo Regional Police, and then we'll be sitting down with the promoters and the property owners to have a pretty blunt conversation about what did not work this weekend and set some expectations in terms of when they need to begin to work with us for next year and their request for a noise exemption. We're still in the midst of pulling that information together and having those meetings, and then at some point I suspect a noise exemption request will come back to council for next year's event.
Yeah, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank our bylaw staff for their work over the weekend, in particular in dealing with the event in question. I was out last night with them until late, meeting with them and the property owner, addressing some of the concerns we were seeing both in our municipality and in the neighboring municipality. And I think staff have handled it particularly professionally, especially yesterday as the call volume was very, very high. Okay, we'll move on to the bylaws. First reading. It's been moved by Councillor Fernandez, seconded by Councillor Gazzola, that leave be given the mover and seconder to introduce the bylaws listed on the agenda, and that the same be taken as read a first time and stand referred to the Committee of the Whole. All in favour? Opposed? That's carried. It's been moved by Councillor Marsh. The Council resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole. All in favour? Opposed? That's carried. Councillor Marsh.
All right, the first item on our agenda for the Committee of the Whole is the bylaws listed on the agenda for second reading. Do we have a move? Councillor Yanetsky moves it. All in favour? Opposed? That's carried. We have dealt with the tenders, so now we are moving on to, we've dealt with number 2. Number 3, moved by Councillor Fernandez, the appointment to the Economic Development Advisory Committee and the Downtown Action and Advisory Committee. Any questions or comments on that? I just have one comment that the wording for the Downtown Action Advisory Committee we should change the word from the to a, because we have several building owner and local developer representatives on that committee. Just a minor tweak. Okay, so all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Number 4, encroachment agreement, moved by Mayor Verbanovic. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We've dealt with number 5. Number 6, Climate and Asset Management Network funding opportunity. Moved by Councillor Ioannidis. Any questions? Okay, Councillor Gazzola. Oh, Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah, I took a look at the FCM website, and I emailed Mr. Winter on this, because I just feel that when I'm looking at the whole description of what this is, that it's just very, very loosey-goosey. Help me understand why we're not using the resources we have within our city with the University of Waterloo and their environmental sciences, our Conestoga College with all of the engineering programs we have both at Conestoga and at U of W. Why are we not using those resources first before we start spending money on hiring one person for 2 years?
Mr. Reedman?
Through the chair, so there is technical work associated with this that we would expose ourselves to a lot of risk if we just had students doing projects related to this work. The second component is this is work that we have to do anyway, so this is work that we can accelerate and have it funded through FCM if we're successful in our application. So it would take us longer time to do this work, 4 years versus the 2 years. And then the other big benefit of this is the collaboration with other municipalities that are dealing with asset management. So we heard recently that asset management is a relatively new field for municipalities, and the responsibilities are expanding greatly in provincial legislation as well as federal legislation. And to be able to open up to funding options, we recommend trying to be in the first cohort for this group. So there is a selection process that we're filling out an application for, so that we could be turned down, but we wanted to strengthen our application by getting council authorization to send along with the application, because it's weighed based on support from members of council as well.
So, but why, I mean, to have a fulsome discussion, why didn't this come through committee last week? Because we must have known about it last week, and I think it would have been important to have that fulsome discussion, because we're asking, my understanding is, we're asking for funding in advance of the budget to what? To ensure that we can do this, or is it a sign of good faith to FCM that, you know, we're going to do this project? I'm not understanding why we're asking it in advance of the budget.
So through the mayor, as many of you may recognize, the time windows for these applications are relatively short and don't always align with our committee schedules. So the application for this is due June 15th, and the next council meeting is June 16th. So by the time we got the application ready and were able to bring it forward, the timing meant to put it on committee of the whole now. I'd like to reiterate that we are planning to do this work anyway. This just accelerates the work and helps fund it through other sources of government. Otherwise, we're going it alone and funding it out of our tax base.
Okay, so if we get the funding, then my understanding here is that we're going to be hiring somebody for 2 years, including fringe and training, at a tune of $155,000 and $155,500. And the attendance cost is $19,000. So I've gotten a list of staff that are going to be involved. What says after 2 years that this person that we've hired is not, I mean, they're temporary now, but what happens in 2 years? We're just going to let them go?
Through the mayor, any permanent additions of FTE get approved by council through the budget process. So if this were to become a permanent position, it would have to come to council at that time for approval.
So my understanding is if we don't get this funding, we're not going ahead with the hiring of an additional person.
Through the chair, that is correct. We would look to incorporate this into existing work plans, which would result in us phasing out this work a lot longer than if we were to get funding.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fernandez.
Councillor Gazzola.
Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, my questioning is really along the same lines as Councillor Fernandez. I don't understand why we haven't had an opportunity to discuss this prior to tonight. It's here we are, we're discussing it now, and in 2 minutes we're going to ratify it. When did we first know about this program that we're getting into? Surely we've known about it before the other night. I don't think we do justice to our process when we have something thrown in at the last minute. Especially to me, this is a budget issue. We're all of a sudden looking at close to $200,000 out of the blue. It may well be a fine program, and there may be a lot of reasons to go along with it. I haven't been able to get enough information from the 2-page report from staff. Why is it here tonight, and why wasn't it here last Monday?
So through the chair, the timing of this didn't allow for the development of the report for that committee cycle, so we brought it to committee of the whole. Staff would only proceed with any budget commitment if we're successful in getting the funding from FCM. So we pay it in advance and we're reimbursed for the full funding up to $175,000. So we are only planning to proceed with this if we get approval from FCM to be part of the first cohort.
Well, why don't we deal with it when we get the approval from FCM?
I think staff has already commented that it's going to strengthen our application if we get the council to approve it at this point.
Well, I don't think staff have given me a good enough reason as to why it wasn't here for last week. Surely this has been in the air for quite a while. You want to answer that for staff also, please?
We know, and Councillor Gazzola, you know more than any of us, because you've been here longer than any of us, that these types of funding opportunities come along and they have such short windows of time to apply. And so, of course, I think that what's implied in your comments and Councillor Fernandez's comments is that we are asking staff at any point that we have an opportunity to have a more fulsome discussion about these types of opportunities, that we are directing staff to please come forward with those in good timing. So I think that's been implied, but now stated directly. Are there any other questions?
Yes, Councillor Galloway, Sila Custom.
So I'm just trying to understand this correctly, because as I read the financial implications, do I understand correctly that the $175,000 will strictly come from FCM if we get approved for the grant?
Through the chair, that is correct.
So there will be zero tax dollars going towards this, our tax dollars. It'll come through FCM.
Through the chair, that's correct, and the scope is very limited on the work we can do with this funding.
Right. And so if we didn't move forward with this grant possibility, in the full sum of time, we would have to use taxpayers' dollars in order to get this work done anyways.
Through the chair, we would have to use $155,500. The $19,500 is set, if you're part of the cohort, that is a requirement that they've already set in the application, that funding be used for meeting travel and network, or not networking, but collaborating with the other people in the cohort.
Well, then your explanation and this makes a whole lot of sense to me to move forward with it. Thank you.
Additional questions? Okay. Councillor Fernandez.
Just to be clear, the monies that FCM receives, where does it come from?
Through the chair, I believe it comes from the federal government. However, they have set a cohort aside of a certain amount of people. If the City of Kitchener doesn't apply, that funding would go towards another municipality.
And I understand that, but the money that supports the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is membership fees. And the membership fees, if I'm not mistaken, come from where?
I'll answer that question. First of all, sorry, Madam Chair, can I answer the
Please,
question?
please, Mayor Bogdanovic.
The membership fees are not used for program dollars. Program dollars come from funding from the federal government, whether it's a green fund, whether it's the new infrastructure, $75 million asset management funding that the federal government has given FCM to administer. So Green Municipal Fund, international money, and climate change money, and asset management dollars.
So they're all coming from the federal government, which is supported by taxpayers. It's just coming from a different pocket. Let's just, I know it's semantics, and I know it's, I just think it has to be stated that it's, whether it's tax dollars from the federal government, the provincial government, the regional government, it's still tax dollars that are funding these programs.
Okay, next question or comment, Councillor Gallo-Seelock.
I just want to make a comment that my comments were really clear that it was our tax dollars, the tax dollars that we have the ability to control. We don't have the ability to control FCM's dollars or the federal government dollars, and regardless of whether or not we take that money or a different municipality takes that money, it's going to be spent. And we will save our tax dollars, the ones that we have the jurisdiction to spend, $155,000. That's significant.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Councillor Davey.
Councillor Davey.
Yeah, sorry, at the risk of repeating, this has gotten a little silly, I think, but if anyone has happened to be watching at home, you've probably lost track by now, but really what's happened is, yes, the federal government collects people from all across Canada, and there's a program we can apply to. We either apply to it or we don't. If we apply to it and we're successful, we save Kitchener residents from all that tax dollars collected across Canada $155,000. That money would otherwise go to another municipality. So there's really, in my mind, very little debate here. We either attempt to gather this additional funding or we do not. And it's very, very important to note that this is work that staff has indicated we would have to do in any event.
A recorded vote has been called. Please vote. All in favor, please rise. Those opposed? That carries.
Move that the committee rise and report. All in favor.
All in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
This is where you read. You don't have the blurb? Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Marsh, seconded by Councillor Galloway-Seelock, that the proceedings in the recorded pecuniary interests and conflicts taken at the meeting of the Committee of the Whole held this date as attached here too, and forming part of these minutes be and the same are hereby adopted and confirmed. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. It's been moved by Councillor Davies, seconded by Councillor Etherington, that the bylaws listed on the agenda for third reading be taken as read a third time, be finally passed, and numbered serially by the clerk. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And it's been moved by Councillor Ioannidis that we now adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried.